Hi and welcome to video 5 in the Gatsby JS course, implementing the header, footer and Gatsby links. Now we have our layout and theme provider split up, it's time to implement our header and footer components. If we switch back to the design, we can start planning out how we want to do this. We're going to build the header and footer using a mobile first approach. This just means that we will style it all up for phones first and then do the desktop styling. We don't have any mobile designs here, but as it's a simple site, we can get away with just doing what we want on mobile. For the sake of simplicity, the mobile navigation will just show all of the pages in a row like it does now, but more condensed. And the footer is so simple it can just stay exactly the same on mobile, just centered. So, let's get coding. If we switch back to VS Code, and we'll just get the project running by running npm start in the root directory. Now let's create two simple components for our header and footer. So inside our components directory, we want to create two new files, header.js and footer.js. Inside the header file, we can write a React component that returns a header tag with the text header for now. So we'll import React from React, and then we'll export a default function called header, and we'll just return a header tag for now with the text header inside. Now let's do the same for the footer. So I'm just going to copy this header, go to the footer and rename that to footer, change the header tag to footer, and there we go, just save that. Actually, we might as well just put the text in from the design as it's a very simple component. So if I just copy that text, go back to the design and paste that in. One little trick, so you don't have to manually update the year, because everyone always forgets, we can use get full year here. So if we get a new date and then do get full year and then save that, that will put the current year inside of here. So you don't have to manually update that once a year. Now we have our two components created. Let's switch back to our layout.js file. And as I mentioned here, this is used in every single page. So everything is rendered inside a main tag, but we can also implement the header and footer here because every page has the same header and footer. So first of all, we'll wrap this inside a fragment. Can't type today. We'll wrap this inside a fragment, and then we'll place our header component. That's just auto imported for me above, as you can see. And then we'll import our footer component, and that's automatically imported for me as well. It's in the same directory, so if you haven't got these manual imports set up, it's just a /footer and header. So we'll give that a save. And now if I go to Chrome, navigate to localhost 8000, we should see our header and footer. And because we're in that layout file, this should be on every single page. If I go to contact, we have the header and footer, and likewise blog, header and footer. Lovely. One thing that always annoys me is how the header and the footer come really close to each other. I always think that the header should stick to the top of the page like it currently does. The main content should fill the rest of the page, and the footer should always stick to the bottom of the page, even if the main content doesn't have enough to push it to the bottom. So let's use CSS Grid to fix this. If we switch back to our layout file, we can implement a bit of styling on our global layout. First, import styled from styled components. Oh, no wonder my import wasn't working. From. Then we can create a layout style. So we'll call it layout styles. Set that equal to styled dot, and we'll just make it a div. To combat the issue, we need to set the minimum height of the layout styles component to be 100 VH, which means 100% of the viewport height. Once this is done, we can now set the content to display grid. Now we can set the grid template rows. So if we write grid template rows, we will set that to auto, 1FR auto. Let's give that a save. And what this means is that for each element, apply the rules. So if we wrap layout styles onto this fragment, so it's no longer a fragment, it's now the div layout styles. The header will take auto, the footer will take auto, so they will just take up the space that they need. FR means fractional unit, so it will take up one whole of the remaining space, which is all the rest of the page because we've set the height to 100 VH. So if the header's 30 pixels tall, auto means it'll just take what it needs, so 30 pixels. If the footer is 60 pixels height, it will take the 60 pixels, as that's also auto. The main, no matter how small this is, will take at least the rest of that page size up of 100 VH. So that might take up 890 pixels or something along them lines. That way we have the header at the top and the footer should perfectly stick to the bottom. So let's save this and we'll switch back to our page and just check that's worked. Perfect. And it's not going too far to the bottom and pushing over the fold. If we hit inspect here and hit the select element button, click any div for now, and then find our div class above the header, which is actually our layout. This is just styled components, scoping it. We can see our grid template rows here, and if we hover over it, you can see on the actual page that there's a dashed line, and that shows our grid. So if you can see just where header is, there's a very faint purple dashed line. So that's our auto. And then where hello world is, that block is the main, and then the footer at the bottom of the dashed line, that is the last auto. So it's just filling up the space available to it. Now let's start styling. So if we switch back to VS Code, we'll first get our footer done, as that is the simplest component. So here we'll import styled from styled components, and then we will create a const called footer styles. We'll set that equal to a styled dot footer. Open up our backticks and just sort out the capitalization here. Nice. And then we'll set the text align to be center, and we will set the padding to be just 1 rem for now. See how that looks, and we'll give that a save. Now if we switch back to Chrome, our footer should be in the center, however it quite isn't. Of course not. I haven't used the footer styles, so if I replace our footer with that, go back, perfect, our footer is in the center. Mine will look much bigger than yours as I'm zoomed in quite a bit at the moment. Yeah, I'm currently at 200%. If we go down to what would be more of a mobile size, we can see that this should still fit quite nicely, and if we go too low, it'll just break down onto a new line. Lovely. Now that's looking good, let's switch back to our VS Code and we'll style up the header component. Again for this one, let's create our new header by importing styled from styled components, and then we'll create const header styles, and we'll set that equal to a styled dot header. You should be getting a bit more familiar with how these style components works now. We're simply just replacing it with the HTML element that we want after the styled dot. So let's just copy that header styles out now and paste that where our existing header is so I don't forget again. Before we get to styling this, let's just add in our page links. So I'm going to place this inside parentheses, as we're going to go multi-line. I'm going to delete our current header out for now. Gatsby has a method to handle its own page links, but first I'm going to show you the traditional approach so you understand why we need to do it the Gatsby way. So let's first create a nav inside of here, then we'll create an unordered list, and we'll create 4 list items. Inside each of these list items, we're going to want one of the links. So first of all, it's an anchor tag with a href of, so first one is home. And let's just copy that and replace all the others with that for now. And the second one is about. Actually, no, it's blog in the design. Let's just go back and check the design for what order they're in. So it's home, blog, about, contact. Perfect. So home, blog, about, and contact. And we'll just update the href for them as well. Nice. Just save that and it's just bumped down onto the new lines because of ESLint. So now let's switch back to Chrome and test this. Refresh that. We have our header component. Obviously there's no styles applied yet, so it will get to look nicer when we implement that. But if I click on each one, blog, well, perfect. It is redirecting. There's one issue with this. It's refreshing. When I hit one of these, you can see it's not an instant change. There is a very slight delay, and you can see where my favicon is at the top. There's a very quick loading icon that comes up. And this is because a traditional link redirects you to the new page, so you get this flash. The more content you have, the more noticeable this flash will be. Like if we had images, we'd see them images start to render in and stuff like that. But Gatsby has a way to handle this. So if we switch back to VS Code, we can import link from Gatsby. And it's a named export, so we have to import it with the curly brackets around it. And now for each of these anchor tags, we're going to replace them to be link. And instead of href, it's going to be 2. I quite like this syntax. It's very clear what this is doing, this component. It's a link to / or a link to blog. So shout out to whoever named this component. Lovely. So we've got all them using the Gatsby link now. So the link component does render out an anchor tag just like the ones we created. However, the Gatsby link prevents the default action of the anchor tag from redirecting to the new page. Instead, it intercepts the call and programmatically switches out the component. This means there's no visible refresh. It's even smarter than just that. The Gatsby link knows which page you are going to, and when you hover on a link, if the target page has any assets on it, it'll start pre-downloading and prefetching all of these assets. So if it has things like images, it'll start downloading them before you're even on the page. So when you click that link and it renders the new page, it's already got the images in some cases. So let's switch back and have a look at this. So if we refresh now and click another one, we'll see the change is instant. There is absolutely no delay. We can try and change as quick as we want and it can handle it. And there's absolutely no visible load on the favicon anymore. And this is because it's not actually performing a page navigation now. It's just switching out the components in the background. However, if you click the back, it knows where you've been, as the Gatsby link will still update the page history for us. There's one thing to note with this link component. It's only for linking to internal pages. So if the page is outside of our control or outside of our application, such as linking to a YouTube video, we would have to use a traditional anchor tag. The link tag wouldn't work for that. Now we have a functional header component. Let's style it up. So on mobile, we said we'll just display all of the navigation items in a row. And then when we scale up to a tablet or desktop size, we can then move the home link here to the left of the page and put all the other 3 to the right, just like in the designs. If I quickly show you them. So on mobile, we're going to put the home right next to it, so it'll be home, blog, about, and contact. Then when we go up to tablet and desktop, we'll split it up to look just like this component here. So first, I'm going to target our nav element, and this is the first time we've nested inside one of our style components. So this acts like traditional CSS now, so I can target the nav UL inside here, and it knows that I'm looking for this nav UL because it's inside the header styles. Anything I add here, such as a background color, would apply to the header component directly, but we want to target the headers nav UL. Lovely. And first we'll remove the margin and the padding off this, and we'll set the list style type to none, so we don't have the bullet points. So just switch back and see how that's looking. Lovely. So now we're all tucked up to the left. We haven't got the padding and margin, and there's no bullets. Let's now target the nav UL LIA. And even though it's a link component, as I did mention, it still renders out a traditional anchor tag, so we can target it as an A tag. And for this one, we're going to just change it to display inline block, and then we're going to add some padding onto that. So we'll add 1 one rem of padding to that, like the footer. This way it just makes the target a little bit bigger, so it's easier for people to hit with the fingers on mobile. Lovely. So now let's get them all in line. I'm going to switch it down to what a mobile size would look like. I'm zoomed in, so let's say this is around the mobile size for now. Now we can style up the columns. So for this, I'm going to do display grid. Then I'm going to do grid template columns. And I'm going to write repeat for auto. Give that a save. Check that works, and I'll explain what that's doing. Nice. So what this is doing is it's just repeating however many times on the left what we say on the right. So that would write out auto, 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 auto. Instead of writing auto 4 times, we can say repeat 4 times auto. Now we've got that in, I'm just going to write justify content space between. And what justify content space between does is it puts equal space in between each of the components if they're not taking up the full width of the page. So it handles that really nicely. You could create another styled component like we have here and set it to styled.nav and use a styled nav on that navigation tag there. However, I quite like to keep a page's contents all inside one style tag if it's not going to be reused anywhere else on the site. And this navigation is only going to be used in the header component, so we don't need to worry about that for now. So now we need to update the tablet and desktop scaling. So when we get to tablet and desktop, we want to switch our header to look like this, where the home goes to the left and the blog, about, and contact go to the very right. So to do that, we first need to add a breakpoint in. So in here, we're going to add a media tag, and we'll say min width, and we'll do it at the traditional tablet size, which is 768 pixels. So that's saying when the width gets to 768 pixels, do whatever's inside here. So we're going to change our grid up. So let's copy that grid template columns. And instead of repeating 4, actually no, we'll change the header first. So we want the first li to take up 1 fractional unit. And then the last 3 components, we want to take up their own width. So if you write that in, go back and zoom this right out. Nice, you can see here that when we get to that tablet and desktop size, home goes to the left and the other 3 go to the right. But why is that? If I click my inspector and hover over it, you can see this li here, which is the first one, is taking up 1 whole fractional unit, and then the other 3 are simply taking up the space they require because they're using that auto tag. Last but not least, let's switch back to our component and remove the text decoration and sort the color out. So if we go to our A tag, we will do text decoration none, and we will set the color to be black. Actually, I think we set a variable for this inside our theme.js. Yes, we did. So we will copy the main color text and we'll use that instead. So if we go back to our header component inside here, we need to create a template literal, and then we're going to destructure theme, and that will return the theme .color.text. If we save that, go back, perfect, no text decoration and the correct color. Whilst we're here, we'll also might as well copy that and place that in the footer. This way, if we ever change the theming of our website, all the content will update and we don't have to go around all of our CSS manually finding where we've referenced colors. So for example, if I go to theme.js and decide that we're going to invert this entire website and have the background to be black and the text to be white, the entire website should just switch for us. Oh, all except this. Yeah, of course not. So on each of our pages, we are not implementing the color on the H1 tag. So let's just do that now over here as a bit of a cleanup task. So inside our theme.js, we're creating the global styles, we might as well set the color in here. So if we go color, then we'll just copy this snippet from above and change that to be text. So now all the text in our body should use that color. Nice. Now let's just switch that back to the traditional colors. We can play about with these settings later. Lovely, that's all looking correct now. Now we have implemented the header and footer and have used the Gatsby Link component, we are ready to move on to the next video where I will show you how to import Google fonts into our Gatsby site. Thanks.